Hidden Object Guru here, joined by
The Unabridged Cape.
To talk about something I'm just learning about, and Unabridged is, if not a giant fan of, then at least someone who is unbelievably familiar with. And that, of course, is Clone Wars.
We're to the CGI now, kids. Brace yourselves.
It's gonna be 7 of these podcasts. Because there's 7 seasons, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was other related stuff I have to find and watch as well.
Remarkably, not as much as you'd think. There were some books, which were hilariously, the books were more acknowledging of the rest of the expanded universe existing than the TV show, but Disney tossed the books out the window, so what the hell?
Yeah, okay, there you go. Oh, I'm sad. Every time they throw away something, I get very sad about it. Although, what was the, this is so embarrassing. I was at a trivia night, and they're like, recently, and the Star Wars question was, who is this? And I'm like, oh, obviously that's and this is how bad of a Star Wars fan I am. Obviously, I immediately recognize that as the star of the Shadows of the Empire video game, Kyle Katarn. And then it's like, only after we've written it down and turned it on, I'm like, oh no, that was Dash Rendar. God damn it! Why did you have to be the same guy?
Shoulder pads, man. That's how they differentiate them.
Man,
shoulder pads.
One of them has ridiculous shoulder pads, and that's Dash Rendar. But other than that, he's basically the same guy. So that is the kind of fan I am. I'm aware of the larger world of Star Wars, even if I haven't read a lot of it. I've played all the games, probably all the games, even Masters of Terras Kazi, Terras Kazi, which is not great, but I have played it. I full on rented it back in the day when you could rent video games. That's
oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
You had to go to special stores too. Blockbuster did not have a good selection at that time. But anyway. So yeah, I'm kind of familiar. So let's jump right into this with the first episode, Ambush. I've got the Wikipedia list of all the episodes up here. And I just found out how confusing this is going to get for me, because there is a note here that says, by the way, this episode takes place between episode 47 and episode 2. Like,
oh, I know, right? This was something I was trying to worry about with the movies. Like, they have such a scattershot approach to this episodic storytelling that, yeah, things just wildly play out of sync, and you're just supposed to figure it out. I pity any kid trying to make sense of it.
Wow, yeah. And as I understand it, and this is the thing you explained to me earlier, so the entire 7 seasons of the Clone War TV show take place between Anakin fighting Ventress that time, right? And then the beginning of the next season, or is it after he does the missions with the dog people who are being mutated? Is that where the whole show takes place? No, that's later. It's
supposed to be happening the dog people is supposed to be right before
the attack on, right before Revenge of the... That's what I thought, but I wanted to check on. Although, I mean, it is such a pivotal moment for Anakin as a character, I would understand that's got to happen right before Revenge of the Sith. Mm-hmm. Although, again, as we said, that episode is so good and does such interesting things for his character, it really does feel like his character is betrayed by Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Because of how well he's treated in that episode. And honestly, by the series generally. Like, yeah, he's a very interesting character. If you go by the cartoons. If you don't go by the movies, he's very fascinating. But that's a conversation we'll get into as we go. Mm-hmm. So first off is Ambush. Just a very simple episode where they go to the planet of... I'm trying to remember the race.
Podaria.
Thank you, okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be just throwing in names whenever you need.
No, please do. Yeah, because, I mean, I'm not clear on which planet is which. When they get to the Greedo planet, I recognize that, okay? That is the extent of my alien knowledge. Oh yeah, that's where Greedo lives. That's where Greedo's from. Okay. They're all a bunch of Greedos. All right. Do I remember his race? Rhodian. See? So there you go. But I know the planet... Is the planet named Rhodia? Or is it like the Rhodians live on
Rhodia.
Some places? Oh, it is Rhodia.
They speak Rhodese.
They speak... Okay, so it's not one of the hard ones to remember. See,
no. Oh my gosh, no.
Okay. I wanted to make sure it was nice.
I do want to emphasize is because of how the universe's writer pool worked, some of them would, stick to their own corner and really develop a culture like Karen Travis did with Mandalore, which is something we'll get into at some point in our conversations as well. Whereas there are other ones like Rhodia, where it's like, yeah, these are the Rhodians. They're from Rhodia. They speak Rhodese.
We just see the one city where presumably every one of them lives. Like, we're not putting crazy amount of effort into this, folks. But yeah, it's a pretty basic episode. It's a lot of fun. I know Ventress has evil schemes to send robots to chase down Yoda. It doesn't work. It's a weird place to start the whole series. Do an episode without any of the three main characters in it.
It feels like this is a pilot that they were just like, well, crap, we need to have something for the first day that isn't just another part of the Malevolence arc. So, okay, screw it. We'll put this one in.
Yeah, this does not feel like the first episode of a TV show. It really doesn't.
And,
like, I know that on some level, everyone knows they're getting Star Wars, so it doesn't have to reintroduce everyone to Star Wars, right? Mm-hmm. But it fundamentally doesn't feel like, oh, well, this is the first episode of a show. Like, I'm not being introduced to this world at all by this episode of television. And that's not a big complaint. Like, it's not a huge complaint. I mean, I like the episode, but it's a weird way to start. You kind of feel like they should have started with the Malevolence episodes.
I think that they could have made this work and I think the original thought process here was that they would do a stripped down episode where it's just like the core fundamentals. There's a Jedi who's very good and wise. There's a Sith Lord, or Sith assassin technically, who is very ambitious and haughty. There's droids, there's clones, there's guerrilla tactics, and there's an alien world that looks unfamiliar. I can see why on paper that would be weird, but it should also be noted, and this is something I only learned after the series originally concluded with season 6, apparently they only had like 4 days to write every single episode of this TV show. So a lot of episodes, from what I understand, got very hurriedly assembled. So that's the other reason why I wonder if that's why. Good idea on paper. And, if you already know everything that's going on here, you can at least, sit back and just turn off your brain for a bit.
Yeah, I could absolutely believe that. Like, it's not a terrible first episode, but I think my point is it doesn't feel like a first episode.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it comes down to. I mean, I'm not, I didn't dislike it, but I'm just like, okay, well, that was a fun ride. Now we get into the Malevolence trilogy, which is Rising Malevolence, Shadow of Malevolence, and Destroy Malevolence. And wow, is this, it's just going back to the well with generic stuff right away.
Oh my gosh, okay, yeah. This is one of the ones that I've just been wanting to lay into since I saw it as a kid. Because, literally, I was a teenager and I was like, are you kidding me? You're not even, referencing stuff, you're just taking lines.
Yeah, it's very, well-worn territory. Oh, look, there's a giant spaceship. They gotta deal with the giant spaceship. Oh, no! Princess Amidala got captured, and by the way, I know that big continuity they're not as good as they should be, but it's like, I feel like he leads them into traps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the Emperor leads them into traps a weirdly large amount, and they're never concerned about that.
Yeah.
They never seem to notice that when he tells them some information, it always goes wrong.
Yeah, and that's a weird thing that happens in particular because the TV show, because it's constantly focusing on its core cast above everyone else.
Yeah.
It has the problem of where in the old timeline, if someone figured it out, Palpatine just killed them. Yeah. But you can't just kill Ahsoka or Anakin or Padme. So as a result, it just kind of keeps being, oh, you crazy old Palpatine. I will say...
another one of your problems. Ugh. He's always constantly telling the Jedi not to go and save people. But lay into this episode, go for it. What bothered you so much about it?
The one thing I want to give a positive before I get underway and Plo Koon, which, for the record, Dave Filoni, the guy in charge of all of this, is apparently his favorite Jedi, and you can tell because they give Plo Koon so much more to work with. He's the Keldor with the mask and everything. His people have this whole unique barometric pressure with their lungs and everything, so they constantly have to have this apparatus on and all of that, and he gives him some nuance, and like the clones saying, "We're expendable, sir. We're clones. That's our thing." And he's like, "Not to me." That's the one good real scene out of this entire 4-episode arc, which is both my positive and my negative, because it's a 4-episode arc. There is legitimately one good scene in it. Everything else is incredibly repetitious, and it's emblematic of pretty much my major issue with the series, in that they seem to mistake referencing things for just copying them. It's almost like the whole the scary movie craze that was going on, where it's like, we're parodying it by referencing it.
Yeah.
And it's
here, let's point at this thing. And that's the extent of the writing, is pointing at things.
And it feels like they do that a lot in the show, and I think they think that, well, yes, but we're doing it for kids, for a new generation, but the parents, most of the parents who are introducing their kids eagerly to this show probably have the movies on DVD.
Yeah. The kids can watch it themselves. They can watch the actual movies. And that's the thing. It's they can go and they can watch the actual movies if they want to see the movie references, right?
Yeah.
And if they want to, if they want to see the movie references, they can watch the actual movies. This is your space to do new things. And I will say, as we go through it, I'll find that the episodes I like the most are the ones where they try different things with new characters. But we'll get there as we go. And there were a bunch of episodes I really enjoyed here. But yeah, so much of this is so generic, right? Where this whole episode is, the design of the Malevolence doesn't impress me. It just doesn't look like that interesting a ship. And the big hook for it, it's got an ion cannon. I'm like, okay. I mean, is that really something they didn't have before? I was starting to wonder about.
It's actually a really inefficient ion cannon too.
Yeah.
It
takes forever to char up, and it fires just a big disc of ion energy that you can dodge surprisingly easily. I know a cruiser couldn't dodge it or anything like that, but any other ship can just fly around this thing, and they frequently do. So yeah, I was not that impressed with that. But also, then, please.
There is also another thing. Believe it or not, the weapon is also very much a lifting of a better execution of that same idea from Forces of Corruption. Tiber Zahn's pirate fleet has a ship that is essentially a 2-barrel gun. It was a design he built for the Empire back before they screwed him over and he went into being a pirate. So as a result, it even still has the similar command bridge. But It has one barrel that fires an ion charge that can take down a space station's shields, and then the main cannon fires, and it can pretty much take out any critical hit point on a ship like that. And it has to charge up each time, but it at least makes sense in that it's more portable, it's much smaller, even though it was made in a relatively close time frame from when this ship was being made.
Right.
And it just is vastly more practical because you don't have to turn your ship sideways to fire it.
Yeah, although I gotta say, there is an episode later in the series where I'm be like, actually, why aren't there turbo lasers all over the bottom of these ships? Because, and this is maybe going to sound a little crazy, but I'm kind of like, they know, mostly they detect, you don't have to eyeball the people you're shooting at from your bridge at all. So maybe, angle the bridge away from the enemy combat and just fire with the turbo lasers and heavy cannons all along the bottom of the ship where the armor is. That happens in a later episode, but we'll talk about it there. So yeah, the ship itself was not that visually impressive. Like you said, the whole having to turn sideways makes it seem like a really questionable choice. It's very slow. It's surprisingly easy to take down once they've gotten around its meager defenses. It's just not that impressive a ship. And this episode starts off what's going to become a huge theme on the show, which is General Grievous, the guy who flees at the first sign of trouble.
Oh my gosh, yes. His character is murdered in this show.
Um, here is how half-assed this is. And it's, oh, is it half-assed? So I didn't get, so my first experience with the existence of General Grievous, because again, I don't watch the supplemental stuff. So I had never heard of this character until I got to the start of Revenge of the Sith. Okay, so that is the first time I'm ever seeing this character, and I'm like, so it's a robot with emphysema who's not very good at anything? And it's like, that's the big villain this time? A robot with a chest cold who's just not good. And people are like, actually, he's a lizard monster, and he's only got and he's completely Robocopped, and he's only got a brain and eyes and a couple of internal organs to keep him alive. But, like, so he's completely cyborg to hunt Jedi. And I'm like, yeah, but what's with the coughing? Oh, well, he got his lungs crushed in a fight with a bunch of Jedi at the end of the Clone Wars cartoon, and that's why he's like that. I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. All right, so now I see what they're doing, and then I watch the Clone Wars cartoon, and I'm like, okay, well, this guy is genuinely terrifying and impressive. And then you get to this show, and he's just Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, he has a terrible plan, and then people show up, and then he runs away.
And that's the thing, is like, understand, in the original timeline, the original expanded universe, he was this genius tactician. There were whole story arcs just built to emphasize he's the smartest person in the room. He's like evil Batman. And then in this show, he can't execute basic strategy, which, to be fair, a lot of characters in this show fail at, especially... It's going to come up when we get to season 2. You'll very soon see that. But, yeah, just, I mean, I know it's Star Wars. I know everybody's like, it's a fantasy, and also it's a kid show and whatever. But one, the micro-series implemented stuff that you could actually follow and understand.
Oh, yeah.
While still being fantastical. And also, just... My gosh, did any military consultants actually come in for this show? Because I feel like they needed to get... I think if you consulted someone who played a real-time strategy game, several episodes would be written differently.
Well, no, I mean, if there's one thing about the military strategy in this show, I will say that the one issue with it is there only ever seems to be about 30 people involved in any conflict.
Yeah,
on either side. There's basically never more than 30 people in a fight.
And what's extremely bizarre is, I understand if that's partially the tech in the earlier seasons, but that never changes in later conflicts or anything. Like, it just pretty much stays always small scale. Because, like, you saw the micro-series where someone had to hand draw that, and they have these massive battles.
These huge armies. Well, remember when the character, has his army of jousters? There's like 100 jousters on...
Because they're droids, you can mass manufacture them!
Yeah, like, it makes sense that there's so many of them, But, so yeah, I was very interested to see where they would go with it, and I am not impressed so far.
Yeah.
And that's the nicest thing I can say. So yeah, that really, I had issues with that so far, and... now you've told me that's gonna keep going. So yeah, this first sequence, but then we follow the Malevolence, trilogy of episodes with one of the things I had most fun with in the whole series, which is just like 5 guys trying to keep their listening station from being destroyed.
Oh yeah, that was like, it was so fantastic. It was so wonderful to see this happen, because I mean it when I say, I was about to quit watching the show when Rookies premiered. It's like, okay, I'm going to give them one more episode. And if it doesn't work, I'm done. And then they finally came up with an original concept that doesn't constantly reference things and actually makes use of their new material.
Well, yeah, and what's so good about it is, it's like, you wonder, watching the Clone Wars, well, am I going to be able to get on board with a show just about clones and robots? Like, I remember saying back in the day, that's like, when clones fight robots, the only people who lose are the audience. Was what I used to say about that whole movie. And I'm like, no, like, come on, guys. How am I supposed to be invested? And this show seems to, like, one of the major themes of this show is humanizing these robots, not the robot, well, some of the robots, but humanizing the clones and saying, yeah, they're all clones and they're all interchangeable and they were bred just to fight and they age more quickly than humans, so they're not going to have as full a life as a human is. But they have their own culture, they have their own persona, like they have different ways of interacting with each other. Like they're all individuals as well. Right? Even though they all have the same voice, which I do not envy that voice actor.
Oh, apparently he actually has fun with it.
Really? It's like the guy who does all of the different Daleks on Doctor Who, where he just has a great time doing all of the different characters.
Oh, yes. Apparently he would, like, write down notes by each character's name to be, like, just, like, a handful of attributes, and then he just puts that in. So, like, yeah, and I do appreciate that. He does have a lot of fun with that. I will say that is, well, I'm glad to see it because it's good to see, more personality in the background characters and everything. That was something that we'd started to see, like with the Republic Commandos, and that was the big difference between this timeline and the last was back in the day, the main clones weren't actually that individualistic. They were more like drones, but any kind of clone that was an offshoot that had some kind of mismanufacturing, whether they were an ARC or if they were a Republic Commando or whatever, as soon as they had an ounce of individuality, then they started behaving like this. Whereas for this show, everyone's
got their own personality. That's fat. And I mean, I don't dislike that choice. I think it's an interesting choice, and I think it gives them a lot of dramatic opportunities, right? I think that's probably a good choice for the series. But you know what? I'm just one season in. I cannot say that I'm right about this yet. We'll talk about it going forward.
All right. I will say that it's not a bad choice. It's not a bad choice. Good. It does create a
continuity stuff.
Plot hole for the entire Order 66 thing that they try to fix.
Yeah, it's tough because if all of these guys are individuals and they all genuinely like what they're doing and seem to genuinely like the Jedis, why did they all just start murdering everybody?
Which is the big jump, because if you go back to playing Battlefront 2005, back when they had that one campaign and Tamara Morrison's narrating, they know that Order 66 is coming. Like, they talk with regret about how they know something's happening and actually feeling pretty terrible about it, but not stopping it. So it raised the question of, is this show gonna do that? Are we going to have them
They have to, right? That's gotta be what Season 7 is. Wait, no, don't say anything. Don't say anything.
I'm not saying anything.
I just realized I asked you to. But it's like, I don't understand if the show is this, how Season 7 isn't a war between the Jedi and all of these clones that we've come to know and love over the years. But you know what? We'll talk about it when we get there. I don't know why I'm trying to get you to do this stuff for me. No.
It's all good.
I'll stop right now. But you see why I'm so excited to go forward. But all right.
It's fascinating to look at, and that's why I'm eager to talk about this, because as much frustration as I've had with the show, and I could have given TED Talks to friends about my frustrations with this creative team's output.
Yeah.
It still is fascinating to look at just from a critical analysis point of view.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll worry about that going forward. So, next up we have the 2 episodes about R2 going missing, which raises this suggestion that it raises this idea about how the world works where, wait, they wipe every droid's memory after every mission? That seems crazy to me.
It depends. That was actually basically was a conscious choice. Wedge Antilles back in the X-Wing novels. Oh yeah, he constantly wiped his droid's memory. And whereas Luke was like, no, I'm not going to wipe anyone's memory. I'm not going to wipe R2's memory, because basically the longer you let a droid go without memory wipe, the more inefficient but more individualistic and creative they get. The more they develop a personality, which is basically how they sidestep the whole. Aren't droids basically slaves? Yes, but we eternal sunshine of a spotless mind them every
so they
day.
Don't know how awful it is. Also, sometimes we build droid torture chambers, but we don't want you to think about the droid torture chamber we built.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it's just another action heist episode, which they've done so many of. It's a very simple episode plot. R2 has gone missing. They gotta find him. There's an evil R3 unit where they seem to, it's weird. We get this moment where they act like R2 is old and not as good because he's an R2 and this is an R3. And they ask the audience to assume, well, a bigger number is just better. But I'm like, I think the different designations are like different roles and not just like, oh, that's these 2 series. This is the 3 series. Because like, if the 3 series was new, why 5 episodes later is there a 6 series? Because there's an R6 later. And I'm like, I feel like the numbers aren't supposed to mean what year they were made.
Kenobi's Astromech and Revenge of the Sith is an R4 unit, and it doesn't last half as long as R2. Yeah, they're different designations. I don't know why they decided to be like, oh no, it just means it's better. No, they're different brands.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they act like I like the golden robot is cute and all, but no, I don't think an R3 is better than an R2. Especially since I have no idea how the goodness of an astromech droid is judged.
Yeah, it's like, what accessories does it come with? Does it have a cup holder this time?
That's exactly what I'm thinking about. It's like, it can seem to do plenty of, like, R2 can do plenty of crazy nonsense stuff, so I don't think you need a better one, and they can all work the shields on an X-Wing, which is all they really have to do. So, yeah, that part of it I found very strange. Them act like the way Ahsoka is like, oh no, it's better. You can get an R3 now. It's about time you traded in that clunky old model. I'm like, really? Okay. First off, kind of a dick move to R2 to talk like that. I mean, I know he's missing and maybe destroyed, but like, these robots are your friends too. I know, like, it's this weird thing where they're both a machine and a slave and they're friends. The relationships between people and robots in the world of Star Wars, very confusing. Exactly what they want. But I, who's openly confused by that, can say, it seems weird how cavalier everybody's being about the death of R2.
Yeah, that always bugged me. Oh, and by the way, I know we've already belabored the point, but just to further emphasize droid designation being funky, the 3PO line, yeah, their differentiation is the first letter. So there's like K3PO and D3PO. So like the numbers are
they're all protocol. They're all protocol droids, and then there's a designation beyond that.
Yeah, so like I don't know, but I'm actually very eager to hear your thoughts on what comes next. Actually, if you're ready to dive into the Bombad Jedi.
Yes. Okay, let's get right to it. I absolutely hate Jar Jar Binks. And this episode did nothing to turn me around on that. And this is what I wanted to ask you about when I was watching this episode, right? And the subsequent episode, which is just about the rescue of Nute Gunray. And there's evil people throughout the frigging Republic, because everybody works for, Darth Sidious ultimately. But as I was watching this Jar Jar episode, right? And that's what it is. Yes, yes, I mean, technically I think Padme is the main character of it, but it's fundamentally a Jar Jar episode. He does the most stuff in this.
Yeah, she gets fridged for most of it.
How does this play to children? Because I understand this is a cartoon, and while the vast majority of people who watch it are not children, I think on some level they can say to themselves, oh, we're just making a children's cartoon, so it doesn't have to be that serious and blah, blah, blah. That would fly in sharp contrast with some of the episodes they do later on.
Oh, I know! And that is, I want to just say right now, because this is an excuse being used a lot for Star Wars in general, is it's a kid's thing. Yeah, so is Avatar The Last Airbender. So is freaking Courtney Crumrin, where a guy gets dragged to hell on page.
And the thing is, like, Avatar...
stuff.
And that's what I'm saying, but it's like, even Avatar, there are silly scenes, right? And there are fun scenes, and there are comic scenes, but there is a seriousness to it overall.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a gravitas to the whole experience. And I don't I haven't, I don't remember that well, but I can't imagine there was ever an episode just full of buffoonish nonsense in the entirety of Avatar as this one episode of the Clone Wars. Like, I can't imagine. I mean, if someone remembers Avatar better than I do, please correct me
Oh,
on this one.
as someone who recently rewatched it,
There's nothing this bad in there, right?
the Great Divide is probably the worst episode, and it only gets goofy right near the end. Otherwise, nothing happens. That's the big difference, is just nothing happens. That's the worst episode of Avatar, is we had one filler episode.
Okay, so there you go. And this episode, you're just watching, you're like, what do they think they're doing with this? Like, I mean, there's this overriding problem with the entire series, which is it's hard to take the robots seriously as a threat. It is. And they're designed that way. They're designed to be ridiculous buffoons who are easy to cut down. That's why the super droids look a little scarier. That's why the droidecas look like really scary. The destroyer droids. And that's why Ventress is so scary. That's why all the monsters they build are so scary. Like that scene in Rookie's a really great episode where a guy just gets eaten by a worm. And everyone's like, oh hell. A guy just got eaten by a worm. Let's keep moving, because you can't be sentimental right now. Right? But the worms are scary. Later they'll be like cockroach, two-legged dinosaur things that are scary. And then at the core of this, the main enemy they fight are these ridiculous cartoon robots. Right? And they are ridiculous cartoon robots that are so pathetic, they can be defeated by an idiot frogman stumbling around. And he keeps accidentally winning. And I'm like, do you not understand the seriousness of the situation that we're all supposed to be involved in?
It's Mr. Magoo in Star Wars.
It is. And that's the only way to describe it, logically, is like, I'm watching the adventures of Mr. Magoo. And that's not good. That's not what this should be. And you can say, well, it's a kid's cartoon, but it's like, yeah, so are the rest of the episodes, and they're not this bad. Right? I think this might be the worst episode.
Oh, you haven't seen
of this season.
Okay, of this season, I can agree to that. I will admit, though, at the time, I actually did find myself laughing at it, because it's like, oh my gosh, okay, we hit peak stupidity. Just like, okay, I just have to either laugh or cry at this.
Okay.
It produced a ton of great memes, if nothing else.
I would hope.
Because just, oh my gosh, yeah, it just... Yeah. Oh my goodness. But I do have one bit of bad news I have to spoil for you right now.
Oh, please, go.
Jar Jar doesn't vanish after the first season. They seem to really want to make him come up a lot.
Oh my god.
And the Gungan army comes up at least 2 other story arcs, and...
About the Gungan army, oh...
I don't know.
You're making me sad, dude. You're making me sad.
I don't understand why they did it. They had total creative freedom, basically. And that's part of, I think, what bugs me about the show is, like, they could so easily have done so many things. And like we said, when they come up with an original concept that isn't super kiddie, they start to actually show some promise.
Oh, yeah.
Problem is that they keep on not doing that. It's like, I don't know if they didn't have the confidence, or if they just didn't have the experience, or what.
Damn. Alright, so, next up, Cloak of Darkness, which is just an episode to get Newt Gunray free. That's really all it's for, right? They just, you need to get him back out there and establish yet again that everybody is, like, corrupt and villainous inside the Republic as well. Like, there are traitors everywhere, and people are not as concerned about this as they should be. Like,
there's that, but there is one other thing that they do actually critically set up here. The Jedi Master that accompanies Ahsoka, Luminara.
Yeah.
One thing, as I think I mentioned earlier, she was one of the major presences one of the major characters. Words hard.
Yeah.
Of the expanded universe back in the day. She and her Padawan were actually sassier than Obi-Wan and Anakin at points.
Really?
Yeah, which is why it's so weird that they made a very key point of having her be a critical character of the show at several points, and yet she's actually more, stiff upper lip in the show.
Oh, wait, is this the 2 characters from that episode where they were fighting the robots in the cave? In the miniseries?
Not in the micro episodes? Multiple episodes, so it's like...
the cartoon where they're in the cave full of the robots.
Yes,
that's okay, I thought that was her. Okay.
Yep, Yep, that is her, and they seemingly only watched that little clip where she was, having this very serious moment with her Padawan, and they never seemingly read any of the many books or comics that she appeared in, so as a result,
Oh.
they make her be incredibly uptight, and you're gonna see that going forward. Like, occasionally you see a glimmer of the sass from before, but a lot of it is just kind of gone, and it's confusing. But her appearance here isn't a coincidence. They are setting her up for her appearance in later episodes. She's
Okay.
gonna be definitely a thing in season 2.
Okay, I will keep that in mind. And now after that, we've got Lair of Grievous, where Christopher Lee, Darth Tyrannus, Count Dooku, see, I remembered names, points out, gosh, General Grievous, you're pretty terrible at this, and decides to give him a test of whether he can take out a group of Jedis. And the answer is, well, you can get one of them, because one of them is very reckless. But no, he doesn't actually do that great a job, but he gets forgiven anyway. He kind of gets taken down hard, and this is where I saw my issue with the thing, which is, so he's just going to be coughing and hunched over all the time?
Oh, I know. It's like this is before that happened, and apparently, again, it's like they missed it. It's like someone forgot a very crucial character detail, and we're like, who cares?
Yeah, I guess my initial impression of him, the robot with Eczema, decided to, it's how they decided to go with the whole character? Just robot with emphysema? I'm very disappointed. It's like, I wanted more of the terrifying badass General Grievous from the series, from the miniseries. And then, yeah, that didn't happen.
I want to just point out here that, again, this is the episode on paper is a perfect premise. Grievous has been underperforming. Count Dooku throws a test at him. This has been roughly a story idea that's been explored in other things. They could totally have fun with it here, because, the setup of Grievous's base is, what if Star Wars, but Saw? With, this, and then, you could do something with that, but both because this is the first season where they're the kiddiest as possible, and also because it's just this show, they don't go where they could with it. It's not really ever trying to even begin to be scary. There are episodes of Thomas the Tank Engine that are more terrifying.
I've seen scary episodes of Thomas the Tank Engine. They do a Halloween episode every year that's very creepy.
And then you got this, which is Star Wars. It's got wars in the name, and it's actually got, more delicate fingered gloves about the whole situation.
Fascinating. All right. Next up, the Gungan General.
Well, I mean, to be fair, before that, the whole idea of Dooku,
Dooku being captured. Which, by the way, it's weird that, the Dooku captured is so strange, because every now and then they, massively jump ahead. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, when did that happen? And it's no, that happened between episodes. All this stuff about Anakin going on a quest to capture Dooku and then him getting captured by pirates. Yeah, that all happened off screen. Just go with it. We didn't make that episode. But it made me feel, and this is what I want to ask you, was there a movie special that I didn't watch? Nope? Okay.
You just jump right into Anakin's captured.
And I honestly felt like I had accidentally skipped an episode.
The problem is, I'm glad you bring this up. The problem is the way they handle their intros. They have, Tom Kane.
Previously on, yeah. And by the way, I love their narrator.
Believe it or not, he's also Yoda. Tom Kane has voiced, probably at least one character in every single Star Wars thing since they started having voice actors. The man is a legend for that.
All right.
But they seem to lean a lot on, here is this quick introduction to get us past all this other stuff, which is extremely weird, because there are other story arcs, like Malevolence, where they draw it out for episodes. But there are other ones where it's all of that potentially interesting story, that's just going to go into 30 seconds. Here's where we're actually going to tell the story.
That's so crazy. It's such a bonkers way to structure a TV show. It really is bizarre, but all right, let's go for it. But yeah, and then we do, they get captured by, they come to Ronser. Yeah. the unimpressive pirate sequence and then, aren't Jedi supposed to be able to detect deception? Aren't they able to see what's going on here? Because, they let themselves get captured weirdly easily.
Oh, I know. And the simple answer is there's no reason for this.
Okay, they just need
Basically,
that plot to happen.
I do have the unfortunate news that also, get used to seeing Hondo. Get really used to seeing Hondo.
Really?
Yes, because discount Captain Jack Sparrow. And the thing is, the fan base for this series loves him to bits. There's fan art for him and everything, and I just, he's not terrible, but he's not remarkable.
Okay, well, I'll see going forward what I think of his additional appearances, but my only take was, wow, this character is mildly annoying me, but I kind of like the voice the guy is doing.
Oh yeah, it's like Don Carnage. That's the one thing that sells him.
Yeah, I'm kind of liking the voice this guy's doing. So, but that's the only good thing I had to say about this guy. Which, if he's going to be coming back over and over, oof. And then you get more Jar Jar. Exactly what I was hoping would happen. A ton more Jar Jar. Come on, guys. No. Why are you doing this to me? But then and I gotta say, something that I question about this show, and it's not a big issue with the show, but it is weird how many episodes end with Republic battleships appearing in the sky, immediately after the action is over.
Mm-hmm.
They will just, not every episode, but I think this whole season of only 22 episodes, I think 7 episodes ended with, well, we solved the problem, and here's our reinforcements. And I'm and then, Obi-Wan walks off the ship and says something clever, and then, okay, well, let's move on. It's such a weird way to end so many episodes.
Yeah.
And this episode, I really noticed that too, where it's okay, well, let's just, I don't know if it was this episode or the one right after, but so many times that is how things wrap up. But why would you think we wanted to see more Jar Jar? Watching this, who was clamoring for more Jar Jar in dangerous situations? I just didn't get it at all. And then, of course, we had Jedi Crash, which is the Eyeless Sakura episode.
Yeah, by the way, fun fact, this one was actually written by Lucas's daughter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, her main thing is wrestling, but, he was like, hey, you like to write. You want to write a couple episodes for the show? And so she's like, okay.
Oh, she's the one who does MMA.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay,
yeah,
nice.
And that's why with this episode, while it didn't really blow me away in any respect, I at least appreciate that, okay, if this is someone's first real attempt at writing a TV show episode, this isn't a bad premise, this isn't a bad message, I at least get why this would be on a kid's show.
Oh, totally. But at the same time, as I was watching these 2 episodes, it doesn't paint the best portrait of pacifism.
No.
The thing is, these are literally pacifists who are so hardcore that they're if they want to blow us all up, they're free to blow us all up. I'm I don't know of a lot of... First off, I don't know how your species has survived.
Yeah.
If your look at the world is, if people want to blow all of us up, that's just what's going to happen. That seems, even for pacifism, that seems a little intense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not alone on that. I understand what they're trying to do with the story, but the guy is so extreme about pacifism. It seems more like a mental illness than a code of conduct or an ethos.
That is actually just an issue also with the series in general, is that you're going to find a lot of hardline episodes where it's just, we have to, as dramatically as possible, emphasize our message. There's not a lot of room for subtlety until, I think not until, season 4.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, now I know.
Now you have the warning.
Now I know when I have to wait. All right, so I'll see going forward. But yeah, there we go. And then we get to Trespass. Oh, fun fact: Defenders of Peace and Jedi Crash featured some of what do you call it? I gotta say, I will call out how much I liked the look of their village that was built entirely from seeds from a giant tree. Like, I found the inherent concept of this species on this planet so interesting. The idea that their entire existence, and again, this is a planet where the sentient inhabitants, maybe 200 people, period. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the rest of the planet is like, but we only get a look at one tiny island. But the point I'm getting at is what I find so interesting here, right, is this idea of a world where the entirety of their existence is, we live here, right, and we schlep from here to a giant tree, and the tree provides us with all our sustenance. But the danger is, after getting these giant seeds from the tree, we have to drag them back through long grass where giant cats try to kill us. And I would have loved, and that's a really interesting idea for a society. And what I would have loved is, had that idea for their society in any way, shape, or form made it into what they were like as people and characters. If that had affected, like, if I could see that their pacifism was in any way caused by this, or, you know, just if this really cool idea for how this race lives was in any way reflected in how they acted. See what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, and again, in this case, the main reason that I'm at least a little bit kinder in this case is, like, this clearly is an oversight, plus the 4-day writing time.
I know.
Circumstances clearly were not ideal for this, and it just... But it's like, yeah, it still is. It's not a great thing. But that leads to the flip side of Trespass.
Yes.
Which, like, hey, what if we had an anti-colonizer narrative? What if we visually referenced, you know, the original trilogy without being heavy-handed and actually used
this
it
is a really good episode where they're just like, yep, we're going to make it 100% clear that the problem here is British colonialism. Like, everything about the guy and his race of people just makes it 100% clear that, yeah, the problem is British colonialists ruled half of the world, and it was terrible for all of the natives. Like, the way the guy arrogantly says, no, they can't be considered sentient because they don't speak my language. I'm like, wow! You know you have droids that can do that for you. And he's like, nope, my only species that can speak the common tongue with me should ever be considered as, like, fully sentient and have their property rights respected. Because you can't deny that any rational way of looking at this would say, they have culture, they have language, they have art, they have houses. Obviously, this is a full species with its own right to be here, but he's such an arrogant bastard, and that's exactly how the British treated India and all of Africa.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, completely, and that is why, just like, I love that this episode happens.
It's such a good episode.
How it did, because of how rough pretty much everything else is, but like, okay, we've got a chance here of actually saying something with some nuance. I mean, yes, he still is obviously evil, like he might as well have an evil goatee.
Why is it? He's basically just twirling a mustache the entire episode.
But you at least are getting the message, and it is a good message to convey.
It's a great message.
So yeah,
I'm very happy with this. A guy who would rather, murder natives than have to admit that he is not in charge of everything. It's a really good episode. I was very happy with it. And it didn't even, they didn't even try to stretch it out to 2 episodes.
No, and they didn't have any ridiculously contrived combat. Like, for once, the Jedi are mediators. They're not just fancy ninjas with lightsabers.
Oh. Yeah, it's like, no, they're mediators. They're there to solve problems. That's supposedly what they're supposed to do. And it's great to see them actually doing it for once. So yeah, this might be the best episode of the season, although we'll talk about that in like 15 minutes when we get into our season in review. Mm-hmm. But all I can say is I really loved this episode. I was happy with the not only, I mean, you can say, oh, well, you just like the message because you agree with it politically and blah, 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 blah. But it's like, yeah, I do. I believe colonialism is bad. I believe it has historically been a blight on the world. But beyond that, it's just, even if you don't like the message that much, I just think it's a really well-made episode.
Mm-hmm.
If you're pro-colonialism, you're probably going to have a problem, with parts of the episode. But overall, I just think it's a stunningly good episode of the show so far.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
And now we get the hidden enemy, where we, for the first time, 16 episodes in, really get into what it's like being clones.
And also, prequel, the movie that started this whole series off. Because this is one of those ones where it's like, hey, yeah, you know how there was, like, you know, a weird absence of certain things in the Republic Army's, you know, armaments? Well, here's our explanation as to how the hell that happened.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. Like, all of the blowing up of the munitions and him going after that. Like, but the fact that this guy, like, they're essentially, I mean, let's face it, these are slaves. We like the clones. We think the clones are cool. A lot of the clones have interesting personality, and it's wonderful to see them, you know, fighting and showing bravery and doing awesome team tactics. But when you sit right down and talk about it, they are also slaves. They are sentient, the equivalent of human beings, who have been bred only to serve in combat and they clearly have personalities, they clearly have free will, theoretically, but they're told to just fight and die and do nothing else. They have no choice in their lives. And I really like that, yeah, General, what do you call it? The droid army is worse, but it's only by a matter of degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that all of the heroes, and I hope this goes someplace interesting, all of the heroes, I mean, yeah, they're sad when their friendly soldiers die, but fundamentally at the core, they treat them as being completely expendable.
They are assets.
Yes, they are assets, and that's it. Like, it is so much bigger to them when a diplomat is killed, when a Jedi is killed, when one of those, that's a huge thing. But when a soldier gets killed, and you can say, well, there is a degree of that in the way all, what do you call it? All frontline soldiers are treated by the people in charge of them. And I would agree that exists. But here, because they're clones, because they literally have no lives other than being the soldiers in this army, it is more, I would argue it is more intense, and it can lead going forward, I'm going to see where the show goes, to some interesting conversations. Because this show is actually willing to have one character say, yeah, maybe you're not right about this stuff.
Oh yeah, and that is why I keep saying season 4, which like all I'm going to say is Umbara pays off on everything you're loving here.
Okay.
And just I feel like that is one of the major payoffs to how they handle the clones is by just. It seems to be one of the few things they're comfortable acknowledging is that, Jedi stoicism has led to them basically treating these living beings as essentially Lego bricks that they can just toss at the enemy's other slightly less morally ambiguous to destroy Lego bricks.
Yep. And that's the thing. It's like they are treated like, they're not treated that differently from the droid armies. The only difference is the people who own the drone armies have open contempt for their drone armies. Like, nobody, even the people who rely on drone armies, they don't like the drone soldiers. They're not interested. Like, they don't care about the drone soldiers. They're not sad when they die. They actually are like, oh god, I can't believe I have to deal with these things, is the opinion you are most likely to see out of those characters. Right? Whereas, for better or for worse, these people seem to genuinely like the clone soldiers and are, kind of sad when they die, but they're still treated as expendable assets and not full people. Even though they all have individual names, and even though people develop personal relationships with individual members of the team. Your Codys and your Zex? No, what's his name?
Rex.
Rex, thank you. I can't believe I said Zex.
By the way, extra fun fact, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but Rex is actually essentially... In this case, it wasn't the creative team's decision. It was actually Lucas. He was originally supposed to be the character Alpha from the comics. He was going to be an arc from the get-go. But apparently Lucas didn't like that Anakin and Ahsoka had A names, and that Alpha would have then also had A names. Rex got created last minute. But
what a stupid thing to do.
It's George Lucas.
It's George Lucas. He makes a lot of weird, stupid decisions.
It's like, you don't need to say anything for it. It's like George Lucas said.
George Lucas. Yeah, well, I mean, I've never had the most respect for his weird impulses, and the last story I ever need to hear about his idiocy was them trying to make like a game where you played as Darth Maul's ancestor.
Oh,
And him just walking in and saying, actually, no, he should hang out with Darth Maul. Well, but they lived 1,000 years apart. Yeah, but change it. Like, okay, well, we'll just throw away 2 years of work. Thanks, George. And then he just canceled the game. Because that's who George Lucas is.
yeah, and well, now we're going to get to what I'm going to call Elijah gets really annoyed at the Clone Wars for the next 2 episodes.
So here's something that I noticed about this episode, these 2 episodes. When I was watching the first one, I'm like, first off, thanks for more Gungans. Always happy to see more Gungans. There's a pink lady Gungan who's a sassy lady Gungan. I'm like, oh God, thank you. But the thing that really got me about this episode is, I don't know if you noticed in the first one, I don't know if it's a decision of art design or if it actually is, but this is like the cheapest looking episode of the show. Every time they go outside, I'm like, was this rendered on a PS2? Like, is this an old Silicon Graphics workstation cutscene from an old Tomb Raider game? Because the grass looks terrible, the forest looks terrible. Even the facility they go to doesn't look great. Like, the show has largely looked really good, and this episode suddenly, because they didn't want to do the grass, because it's so much work to do living, flowing grass, they're just like, man, there'll just be lumps of green behind everybody. And when it's lumps of brown and crags and lumps of white for lumps of brown for cliffs and lumps of white for snow, that's fine. But when it's supposed to be hills covered in grass, it looks terrible.
Oh, I know. They're literally named the Grassy Plains.
Yeah, like, it's just, I don't know what they were thinking, but wow. It looks like trash.
Okay. So
these 2 episodes. Go.
Republic Comics did a Vietnam arc where Newt Gunray got his revenge on Naboo. So there was a kids game that a lot of the readers of Republic, realistically would have experienced, where, the Gungans helped terraform and make habitable Naboo's moon. Okay?
Oh.
And then Newt Gunray's revenge in the comics is that planet that some kids actually have memories of helping, make habitable. He unleashes a bioweapon on the scale of Resident Evil.
Oh my God.
And it was this whole thing. It was one of the heaviest arcs. Like, they acknowledged that everyone was frustrated with the Phantom Menace and all of that, and they're like, okay, this story arc isn't going to be made with, just with spinning's a good trick kind of stuff. It's like, no, we are going full-on numb tribute here with what's happening. And this is their adaptation of it, as far as I can tell.
Well, what's interesting is there was openly a reference to Vietnam earlier in the series, and we didn't talk about it when it happened. But they specifically point out that they have developed a weapon to defoliate entire planets and kill all the living things, so only robots could survive, so they could bomb a place and it would kill all the living things and then just the robots would be left. And it destroyed all plants as well. And that's an open reference to America's use of Agent Orange in the Vietnam War. And it's a passing reference, but it's like, can't feel great for Americans to be like, have their actions equated with the villains in a Star Wars cartoon. Because normally the villains in Star Wars are based on Nazis.
Oh my gosh, this time the villain of this 2-episode arc, he's so obviously a Nazi that when my dad heard it playing, he just started doing that. And I am the evil Nazi scientist.
Oh, I know. Like, in this episode, he's like, oh, it's Dr. Mengele. Okay. And like, that's clearly what you're watching. You're watching Dr. Mengele with his evil biological experiments. But in an earlier episode, the guy who was attacking the pacifist planet was clearly an American general, proud of his ability to take out, these primitive people who live in jungles.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, that's rough to watch. But anyway, so you were saying about this episode, it's an adaptation of that storyline.
Yeah, it basically seems, because it's the exact same thing. It's a bioweapon on Naboo. It's that entire inherent thing, but they neutered it to the point that it's useless. Like, they don't actually reference this entire thing ever again. Like, no one ever mentions the blue shell virus, and I think it's because I think at least some people involved at the top level even acknowledge, okay, this might not have been a good idea. Because, yeah, it's very clearly like they were just going for the CGI TV show equivalent of damn near a bottle episode, just to
obviously
get around. I don't know if it was a budget constraint or what.
Because after the first one, which all the outside stuff looks terrible, the second one is set almost entirely just inside these 3 tunnels.
Yeah, and just
you can't help but think about the episode, like when they're talking about producing sci-fi TV shows, and it's like, well, we only had you remember that episode of The Mandalorian where they're on the prison ship, and they clearly built one hallway, and they just keep. I really like the episode, don't get me wrong, it's a very fun episode, but they clearly just built a single hallway, and they just keep shooting on that one hallway from different angles, and, decorated quite differently. That's kind of what this episode feels like. Like, we created a CGI model of this one hallway, and now that's where the whole show is going to take place. I have to assume you know what I'm talking about here.
I actually haven't watched The Mandalorian yet.
No! I can't believe I spoiled that for you. There's an episode set on a spaceship, and you will notice that.
It's all good. Trust me.
I can't believe you haven't. It's amazing.
We'll get to that. Don't worry.
We're probably going to do one of these about The Mandalorian.
No. I mean, this show will explain why I have very complicated feelings about the state of Mandalore.
We've had a bunch of conversations about Mandalore in the past, so I suddenly realized why you haven't rushed to watch the show.
Yeah, it's
okay, you know what? It was very insensitive of me, actually.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Once we get through me experiencing the Clone Wars, we'll have you experience The Mandalorian and do a podcast about that.
Okay.
All right. So now we get the 3-episode arc that is the last arc of the season, which is all about the Twi'leks, who I had always thought were called Twi'leks.
Yeah, that's because they are. Thanks for nothing, Matt Lantner.
Seriously, they are. So wait, okay. So the way I heard it years ago, that's the correct one. And it's Matt who's doing it wrong. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, no, it's like, I don't mean to actually be being mean, because, like, I have a feeling just, like, no one had the heart to tell him or whatever, because, like, he's the star of our show, don't make a big deal of it, and the thing is, there are other times in this show you'll hear them say it right, and then other times they get it wrong.
Alright, so I won't make a big deal out of it, but okay, so I was right when I had heard Twi'lek my whole life, and suddenly he's like, Twi'lek. Like, I don't think that's right, though.
Yeah, no, it just, but the thing is, this is another case of George Lucas meddling, because here's the thing, Aayla Secura and the Ryalothians all suddenly speaking, with a French accent. That wasn't a thing until this show. She actually spoke like a New Yorker. She was, like, supposed to have, like, an almost Bronx accent until this show came in.
Huh. Okay.
Because she didn't actually grow up on Ryloth. She was the apprentice of Quinlan Vos, and as a result, she was constantly in all these seedy city places, which
so she's got the lower class okay. Yeah. No, but it's what television has taught you a Bronx accent means. Yeah, a tough guy from the city. You know how we mean. That
exactly.
Kind of thing. Okay. All right. That's actually very interesting. So they were going for a Marissa Tomei kind of voice character thing with her originally.
Oh yeah, and you can actually hear some of her lines in, like, Battlefront 2, and while they're not as hard into the Tomei angle, it still is like, she clearly sounds like she's from the Upper East Coast. She does not sound French.
Alright, there you go. That's very interesting. I could pretend to have smart or in-depth feelings about this episode, analyzing what it did and what it has to say about freedom fighters versus politics and blah, 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 blah. I didn't care about any of that. All I cared about was how cute that little girl was in the 2 and how she befriends 2 clones. And I'm like, this is all I'm emotionally invested in. But they did convince me to get emotionally invested in it.
Oh, you're totally not wrong there. It's weird, too, because Ryloth is something that, out of all of the new EU, this is one of the planets they keep coming back to. There's been other novels and everything. Cham Syndulla is actually the father of one of the main cast of Rebels,
But, I mean, the thing is, and you can tell me if I'm all backwards on this, like, they get there, And there's this fight between who should be in charge of the planet, the rebels who are still there, who are having a revolution, and at the same time you have a senator who might be corrupt and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I feel like they didn't establish any of it well enough.
No, it just really dives in head first.
And it dives in head first. They don't give us any information. I don't understand what the factions are. I don't know who these people are. Right? And it's like, why are you expecting me to care about all of this for 3 episodes? And then you give me this adorable little Twilight girl who's just trying to get back to her family and the 2 clones who are charmed by her and want to save her. And I'm like, okay, well, that's all I care about. And then at the end of the last episode where they're marching in freedom, it's not that little girl at the head of the parade for some reason. They're like, no, it'll be another Twilight little girl at the head of the parade. Really? Not the one we spent 3 episodes growing to love? It's some new random character we've never seen before? How do you make a TV show? Because someone should tell these guys how to make a TV show.
Yeah, it's...
I genuinely wanted her to do well. I was so invested in her story and the story of those 2 guys. And then she, gets hugged by her dad and then we never see her again. And I'm like, no, you need a bit of more closure on that. We need her to be the head of the thing.
It's the inexperience gets really on display here, and I understand that to a certain extent, but also it's like, you've been handed one of the biggest multimedia projects of all time, and you're adapting tons of other people's stories, and you have complete creative say over how they're adapted.
Yep.
Maybe, not rush into this. Maybe actually take more time.
That is what I'm saying. They really needed to do that with this one, because I didn't get it. What they were doing this
here's a fun fact. I forgot this arc happens.
How is this the big finale of the season? Is just a couple of episodes about them freeing slaves and then shooting some robots.
And the thing is, the arc doesn't even conclude here. Some more of it gets put in the video game Star Wars Clone Wars Republic Heroes because there's more pointless fighting on Ryloth to do.
Okay, that's interesting. I did not see that coming, but that is very surprising. It's not that interesting a story they were telling, and the way they thought that this is going to be our big capper for the season. Come on, guys, you've got to do better than that.
I don't know. Also, what they do with the ATRTs, making them run around like happy little dogs on 2 legs, drives me nuts, because that's not how they work. That's never how those little walkers have worked, and it looks so... It got to the point that in the video game, you could use them for platforming.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, it was a thing.
That is a strange turn for it to take. So,
it was a thing that happened.
I won't pretend I wasn't emotionally invested in the journey of this kid who's trying to survive, and I really like those 2 soldiers who we might never see. I'm not going to pretend I'm cold-hearted, but these 3 episodes I just didn't care about. Other than, of course, also those are very scary-looking roach dinosaurs.
The blurg.
Is that no, not the rideable blurgs. The one that have carapaces.
Okay. Sorry,
the ones that have cockroach faces and they stand on 2 legs and they race around and they're defeated shockingly easily. They get half an episode of build up and then he's like, just drop a wall behind him and they'll just hang out there. Oh, okay, that's it. And that was it. That was all it took.
That all said, we are now at the end. This might actually, when I was first watching this show, this might actually have been my favorite episode here with Hostage Crisis for one very important reason. Because as previously established, the character shields in this show are nuts. Are you a new person? You're probably going to die. If not in this episode, then in a later episode where you appear again so that we can say, hey, remember that person? They're dead now.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we have Cad Bane, who, by the way, it's a miracle we got Cad Bane, because you remember Dirge from the micro series.
I love Dirge. Yeah. He was my single favorite thing in the series. And sorry.
No, they wanted to turn him into a human.
Oh.
Yeah, that's another thing this show loves to do is you could be an alien with unique characteristics, but what if you were just a human with a fancy mask? Like, they have CGI here. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, like, Dirge is the best. Not just his jousting, but his crazy abilities. Like, Dirge is so much fun.
Yeah, they wanted to turn him into a human in the same armor. They were going to completely... Which, by the way, when this was in the same continuity as the micro-series, raised so many frigging questions. But thankfully, instead, is like no one could really settle on what they wanted to do with him. So then Cad Bane got created as a unique character. And
okay.
thankfully, we got someone else who has character shielding, who's a bad guy, who's not appeared in anything else, so he can actually be his own thing, he can have his own personality, and he just kicks people's ass regularly. It's like the one
He's so much fun.
Yeah, and his voice and his whole persona and how he's got freaking body mods so that he can just keep on living in space without having a mask, just like...
He can do that? Yeah, no, that is not established in this episode.
Oh yeah, that's what the whole breathing apparatus on his cheeks are.
Oh, okay, cool.
Just like, he's so friggin' good, and it's so nice to especially see Anakin Skywalker with that stupid frickin' chin finally get taken down task for a minute.
You're taking this very personally, and I like that. No, but this character is a ton of fun. Like, I mean, plot-wise, the episode is just like, on one level, I can't believe that the Senate has this bad security.
Oh, I know, right?
So wait, the entire Senate is guarded by just 4 guys? And you can just shoot them and no one will notice? Oh, okay. Oh, well, no, there's 4 guys, and then there's an astromech droid and 2 other guys in a security room. So there's 5 guys and an astromech droid guarding the entire Senate. It seemed a bit much to me. But once you get into the Die Hard stuff, it's just a super fun episode.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's just, they have so much fun with that, and this was when they first introduced Aura Singh, where there was still a potential of like, ooh, Aura Singh, she has so much backstory in the books and everything. They can do so much with you. I'm not going to spoil how they totally don't.
Don't tell. Okay, but that's an existing character. I didn't know that was an existing character.
Oh yeah, she appeared first in the background of episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and everyone loved her design so much that she basically got Boba Fetted into this really amazing character, and we'll touch on her more with season 2, rest assured.
Okay. Yeah, because she gets an intro like she's someone I'm supposed to have heard of, and I didn't know she was in the Phantom Menace because I did not remember her. But okay, so she's the Clone Wars Boba Fett, is a character who had a really cool character design, so they just went whole hog with it.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely.
Nice, way to go! I'm very happy to hear that. And I'm interested to see where it goes because I really like that Cad Bane. Again, I didn't really believe it would be that easy for them to get away, because I'm like, are there not, like, security flights on Coruscant? Can you just, like, fly away with, Zero the Hutt? And it's not a problem
that
at
is, like, the one downside is, like, this is all for Zero the Hutt.
Yeah, I was not a fan. I mean, we talked in our previous podcast about, the uncomfortableness of listen to this guy doing this Truman Capote impression that's kind of questionable. And it's like, just a mincingly gay villain with a Truman Capote voice in Star Wars. Seems like I've got enough problems with all of the, what are the Trade Federation guys' race called?
The Nemoidians.
Nemoidians. With all the Nemoidians. Oh god, they're presumably named after Leonard Nimoy. But anyway, with all of them sounding like really offensive stereotypes of Korean people, like, I've got enough of a problem with that, and to add this horrible gay stereotype to it as well, like, oh, come on, show. No, that's not a good look. At least when the, in that first episode where, what do you call it? I'm trying to remember his name. The guy who owned Anakin.
Oh yeah, Watto.
Watto. When Watto's race turns up, they suddenly don't all sound like
they're
really
not
offensive ethnic stereotypes.
Oh yeah, they're actually it's. I actually was very happy about that because that's one of the few races where they seem to have designed the environment for a unique species. That's one of the few times where they were like, yeah, this is a species who can fly, so of course they don't have stairs everywhere.
No, it was very cool. I mean, it's like I said, it's not my favorite planet in the entire series. That is the one from his daughter's episode with this weird race. I didn't like their politics, but I love the idea of that race. But yeah, like they actually put some thought into it. And had they put as much thought into how the culture of, as you say, how the culture of these people would develop based on the circumstances of their lives, as much thought as they did to, well, of course, winged aliens wouldn't have stairs everywhere. Had they put that much thought into it, that episode I would have loved even more, because really it's just kind of an okay episode with strong anti-American and the Vietnam War stuff, with, just one really interesting thing about the aliens. Yes, so that has been the first season. Cad Bane's a ton of fun. Not going to complain about that. So in the final analysis, I'm going to say that I genuinely enjoyed watching, a little less than half of these episodes. I think it does not open strongly, and I don't think it ends strongly. But in the middle, there are a bunch of really good episodes. Whether it's the anti-colonialism episode, whether it's Rookies, which might be overall my favorite episode, or whether it's just the silly die-hard fun of Hostage Crisis. There's a ton of really fun stuff in this first season. But there are so many just really bad episodes. So much Jar Jar. The Blue Shadow virus stuff. The
Grievous.
Everything Grievous does. The 2 episodes about Dooku hanging out with pirates. And I'm like, what are you... so many times in this season, I just thought, what do they even think they're doing? Not only are they not pulling off... whatever they think they're doing, they're not pulling it off. But the problem is, I can't even tell what they think they're doing.
Yeah, it feels like there was not a plan. It was just sort of what are some things we'd like to do? And I wanted to say that I think that is the referencing thing is a big problem, because when we'll get into that later, there are episodes where it feels like we want to tribute something by basically just remaking it in Star Wars.
Just doing it again. Okay.
And
so you're saying not just re-bringing back Star Wars stuff, but their Die Hard episode will be here's their Guns of Navarone episode. Here's their so-and-so episode.
Do you want me to tell you? I can tell you one.
No, you know what? Don't actually. You're right. Tell me one. Tell me one to look forward to, but don't tell me when it's going to come up, just so I can have fun.
They do King Kong as a 2-parter.
No.
And it's. Oh my gosh! But the thing is,
don't say anymore. Don't say anymore. I can't wait to see that now.
It is. I can't believe someone said, you know what? That sounds like a good plan. And I want to also point out here in all of our conversation about the various episodes, the other thing that's alarming to me is Ahsoka, who's supposed to essentially be our starring character out of all this. Yep. She just so easily fades into the background.
Yeah, I noticed that. We didn't talk about her at all this entire time. We mentioned she was in episodes, but the closest thing we have to a her starring episode is the one where, they have to take down the blockade. And Anakin has I'll do a suicide mission and you trust yourself to figure it out how to save me after I do my suicide mission. And that's a really nice character moment for the two of them, because it reinforces how unbelievably reckless Anakin is all the time, right? And it, reinforces that she's not, if she wants to ever become a Jedi Master herself, she's gotta buckle down and accept some responsibility and say, you know what? Whether or not you think you're ready for it, this is a war. Just by dint of being a Jedi, you're a general in that war. So figure it out. You think of yourself as a kid, but these clones are counting on you to figure out how to win a war. Because they can fight, but you have to win this. You have to come.
No pressure.
This war. Yeah, no pressure. But it's that's an interesting premise, but that's the only character beat we get from her the entire season.
Realistically speaking, Jar Jar is actually given more significant character moments. And
you're right.
I do want to say here real quick, on one positive
Of
note,
course.
Obi-Wan is still incredibly charming, but yeah, still, it's like, even he doesn't have that much to do. Jar Jar
Almost
actually
nothing.
gets more character development.
Yeah, he's a lot like he's charming, he's fun, but it's like there's almost no, and I think maybe my biggest disappointment from a character standpoint is just how little of the Obi-Wan there is in this series. Like, he only shows up a couple of times in the whole season. I mean, sorry, I shouldn't say that. He is in a ton of episodes this season. It's just, he shows up, he's got a couple of lines of dialogue, and then he goes away. Like, he doesn't get any real focused on him episodes the way the other characters do. And that was kind of a disappointment for me, given how obsessed I am with that guy's Ewan McGregor impression.
Oh yeah,
as we talked about last time.
Yeah, James Earl Taylor. Goodness
It's
me.
incredible.
He is the saving grace of this, even though he is, for the first season, basically a bit character.
Oh yeah. Like, he's barely in the show except to, tell Anakin to go do a thing. But yeah, like, sorry, Obi-Wan Kenobi should not be drinking strange booze and getting kidnapped by space pirates.
Yeah, I could see Anakin doing that because he's just so damn impulsive, but, like, there should have been something else for Obi-Wan to do, even if it does lead to, I will admit, the hilarious hijinks of them having to work with Dooku all together.
Yeah, it's a funny couple of scenes, but it's like, I don't believe the character stuff that got us to that funny couple of scenes.
It's like, these plot events happened as an excuse.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. So, overall, I mean, if I had to say what my favorite episode was, it's probably... it's probably Rookies. I was just so impressed by it. Like, there's a couple episodes that I've talked about really liking, but I think my least favorite episode is probably my most favorite episode is probably Rookies, and my least favorite episode, I mean, there's no competition. It's Bomb Bad Jedi. Like, come on, what am I even watching?
I'm just glad to finally hear someone else be like, what the hell happened? Because for years, you need to understand, as a Star Wars fan, like, there are people who agree with me, but often the popular zeitgeist just worships this show. And it's just like, we're not going to acknowledge that? We're not going to talk about that? I will say, in hindsight, Trespass is a lot better than I remember it. So, like, I feel like in terms of actually having something meaningful to say, that's probably the best episode. But yeah, Rookies is just, it's a simple concept that even if
just to be clear, Trespass is my second favorite episode of the whole season. Like, it's incredible. But just as a mechanical half hour of television, I gotta go with Rookies. It's
I want to emphasize here, I think part of what actually truly makes it work is you don't need to know what Star Wars is to watch Rookies. Like, the thing they want to do with the first episode, where it totally doesn't actually click together as anything more than just, well, that was amusing fluff, is with Rookies, you understand pretty much everything you need to know just in that episode. If you have never experienced an ounce of Star Wars,
you can still love that episode. These are guys, their job is to protect this thing at any cost. How are they going to deal with this situation? It is so instantly relatable, right? Like, right away, you completely relate to the situation they're in. You totally understand the stakes. It's a fantastic half hour of television. Yes, I think if you said, like you said, Trespass, is it overall a more important episode? Yes, 100%. Because it's about politics, and it's about, the compromises you make when you're trying to win a war. And it's like how easily you can find it to just steamroller over the rights of an indigenous people because you need their resources and you need this place as a base of operations. And it's like how easy it is to disrespect people who don't speak your language because you don't see them as fully sentient beings. Like, it's got so much important stuff in that episode, but just as a thing to watch, oh my god, Rookies is incredible. And it's all set in one facility and the caves under that facility. Like, it's all set in this tiny area. Yeah, no, I loved that episode.
And I feel like that's the lesson that they needed to take away. Right. And I think they eventually got it, which is that it's not even about the scale of everything necessarily, even though there's some episodes where scale would have been better if they had made things bigger. But it's like, you need to have a concrete plan and idea that could just work, because that is the thing with rookies. Like, as you laid it out so easily, you immediately understand what's happening. Whereas if you try to explain what's happening on Ryloth, it's like, well, there's this kind of thing happening, and there's this character, and there's these political factions, and oh, look, there's this little tiny side story, and because that tiny side story is the only thing that actually feels concrete, that's the only thing that you can latch
grab
onto.
onto. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's just that the whole rest of the episode is just so all over the place. Oh, let's meet 80 new characters and not establish who any of them are. No, like, I care about this little girl and that's it. You know, and that is what Rookies did so perfectly is, yeah, we're meeting all new characters and it's an entirely new situation, but it's like they tell us the stakes, they tell us who these people are, and then they say, just go for it. And we do, and it's magnificent. So yeah, just an amazing half-hour television. I think it's the best half hour to watch, and it's the thing that made me most excited for the series going forward after a very unimpressive first 4 episodes of the show.
All
right, so now say some final thoughts on that, and then tell me what I have to look forward to as we move towards season 2.
Okay, my final thoughts were just another funny thing that I realized is, I'm serious. The Malevolence trilogy felt so long for me back when I originally watched it that I remembered it as being 4 episodes instead of 3.
Yeah. Well, no, but it's like, because it's nearly a month of your life you spend watching this one totally unimpressive sequence of fights. You know, like, who cares?
My final closing remarks is, again, back when we were first seeing this as a fan back in 2008,
yeah,
I'm not sure that a lot of this show is what we needed, like, in terms of, like, new Star Wars stuff, and I think that's part of why it had such a rough reception, because the thing is, back in the day, the first season did actually get a fair bit of criticism from various people, because there were a lot of things that, like, obviously weren't completely clicking.
Yeah.
But, I feel like it's just, I don't feel as vehemently angry towards it now or anything. I now just, it's disappointing because there are some story beats and stuff like that, like with the whole Blue Shadow virus thing, where it's like, I know they couldn't do the full-on Republic arc because, goodness me, I don't think you could do the Republic comics as a kid's TV show. That would have to be made for teenagers at least.
Okay. It's just
like,
too bleak.
Not bleak, but just like it was willing to. People swear in the story and stuff like that. Like, they swear Star Wars words, but still, it's like, you don't hear people say Criff on this show.
Ever.
So it's like, you know, they're still much more restrained on here than they were there. But I just kind of wish they hadn't tried so hard to just lift from other people's stories, and or to just try to so blatantly just copy beat for beat things from other Star Wars stories. I get that George's whole, it's like a poetry, it rhymes, and
yada yada, an idiot. Yes.
But yeah, just like, we don't need that. Especially if you're trying to establish your show as this own independent thing where kids can get into Star Wars just through it. The last thing I would do is rely entirely on stuff and references that they're never gonna get until they've already watched the source material.
Well, and the thing is, I'm interested to see their various tribute episodes, right? Because what I'll say about George Lucas's terrible ideas is, like, and this is what George Lucas doesn't understand is, and this is where this rhyming idiocy started, is he gets it into his head that because everything in Star Wars was, like, ripped off of a bunch of movies he loved when he was a student or whatever, you know, like old samurai movies and old action movies. He thought, oh, well, I'll just keep ripping it, then that's fine. It's all rip-offs, but it's, you know, it's fun rip-offs, and they're good. And I really respect that, you know, like, thumbs up, take the thing you like, remix it, do something interesting with it, have a good time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, he started ripping off Star Wars. And you can't just rip off Star Wars to make more Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then he's like, and he tried to have his little excuse that, oh, well, it rhymes. Get it? It's supposed to remind you of a thing from, no, I know what you're doing. You're admitting you have no new ideas, and you're not even smart enough to do what you should do. Look at other fiction you like and just rip off that. Because that's what you did in the first place, and you know what? It worked. And, say what you will, one of the most lively episodes of this show is Star Wars Does Die Hard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not a great half hour of television, but they took inspiration from something they liked. They got themselves a really fun couple of villains, and they just ran with it.
I do want to emphasize here, I do recognize in hindsight that yes, oh my gosh, Hostage Crisis, as a story is bonkers, but that is the one last bit I will emphasize is the fact that we just finally had an episode in the show where the villains were mildly competent, even if it's because the good guys were idiots. It was just so nice, because, one of the best things you need to keep stakes up is to have villains that are actually intimidating and competent.
Oh, yeah.
If you just have General Grievous every episode, no one is ever going to believe that anyone is in danger.
No, that you really don't. All right, so obviously we're going to be back here for next season. What can I look forward to? What could I be really excited about next year? I'm not asking you for specific episodes, obviously.
Well, you're going to be introduced to Barriss Offee.
Okay.
She's going to be surprisingly younger than she was even in the movies, but she comes in. The Mandalorian shenanigans begin. The King Kong episode duology happens. And they do something with Boba Fett that I honestly feel like the Hostage Crisis episode, I feel it could have been done better, but also I'm glad that someone at least kind of did that, because there was a good reason for it to be done, even if there's actually a book series that did it better. But regardless.
Nice. Okay. So there is stuff to interest me, stuff to look forward to.
Oh, also, I'm
Please.
just look forward to it in the you should have alcohol on hand. When you start landing at Point Rain, have some good scotch or vodka on hand, and just basically take a shot every single time something ridiculous happens.
Okay. That is an hey, you've got me very curious about this thing. All right, don't say any more. I'm very curious now. All right, so here's the deal. Join us back here next time. We're going to be talking about season 2 when the next one of these goes up. As usual, I don't know when that's going to be, but we will announce it on Twitter, and it will be here on the playlist of us talking about Clone Wars, so you are going to be able to find it. Unabridged, is there something you would like to tell people to check out?
Yes. Please feel free to look me up on Twitter at UnabridgedGamer, and also you can find me on The Escapist, where you can conveniently tell me that all of my Star Wars opinions are wrong, as everyone loves to in the comments section. And also you can catch my column Second Look, where I take a look at underappreciated games, sometimes having to really dig deep and find something unique to talk about them. Sometimes it's just really awesome, like Zombies Multiplayer or Alien Resurrection for the PlayStation. And other times, I end up having to look at Rambo the video game and trying to find something fun there.
All right. And of course, in case you were wondering and it wasn't clear, the game we've been playing this whole time is Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which is an unbelievably good game about a forest spirit who's also a Jedi, and it's just the most fun you can have playing a video game if you want to have your heart broken by seeing adorably cute owls getting into trouble over and over and over again. You really start to worry about these owls, is all I'm saying. So check that out. We will see you back here for more of this, but until then, I'm going to say that's right. Au revoir.